Hello everyone. I'm Yumi from the American Democracy Channel. We are working from Florida to protect the freedom and rights of the United States. We look forward to your support. I would be very happy if you could subscribe to the channel. In Florida, it's Tuesday, January 26th. Biden's bad politics has begun. We will uncover the wrongdoing that this administration is trying to do and support Mr. Trump's counterattack. Now that Biden has become president, what he has done has become a real crime. Over 80 million voters in the United States never forgive his deadly sins. It is necessary to clarify his sins one by one in order to atone for his sins. To that end, everyone must work together as one. How about Jay?
Of course. I dream of peeling Biden's ghost and sending him to jail as soon as possible. By the way, yesterday, I was broadcasting an interview with Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky about this election on a program called This Week on ABC TV. It seems that the program was calling another member of the Diet, but the sound was not good enough and it became like a debate with only two members, the moderator and Representative Rand. The moderator tells the senator that Trump was fraudulent, but we are confident that it was a fabrication and there was no fraud. I think you have that kind of opinion, but how about that? In response to the question, Senator's answer was that 75% of Republicans in the Senate thought the election was fraudulent and should conduct a proper investigation. The moderator was not fraudulent, as the State Election Committee and the Attorney General reported that there were no problems with the election. Why do you believe in the fabrication that there was injustice? And he was repeatedly asking the same question, where is the evidence of fraud? First of all, lawmakers said that the change in the law that allowed anyone to vote by mail by the state was unconstitutional, and in Wisconsin, a large number of frauds in which the voter's address was not written on the ballot. I have been refuting the points discovered by the law group on Mr. Trump's side, such as the vote. And in the end, lawmakers said there was no evidence. Did you try to look at that evidence? As a journalist, it was embarrassing to say that there was no injustice without checking anything, and he said exactly what I wanted to say.
George, where you make a mistake is that people coming like you immediately say everything's a lie instead of saying there are two sides to everything. Historically, what would happen is if I said that I thought there was fraud, you would interview someone else who said there wasn't. But now you insert yourself in the middle and say the absolute fact is that everything I'm saying is a lie.
Well, because, Senator, I said what the president said was a lie because he said, hold on a second. He said the election was stolen. This election was not stolen. The results were certified in every single state after counts and recounts.
You're saying that absolutely you're saying there was no fraud and it's all been investigated. That's just not true.
It's not what I said, sir. I said the Department of Justice found no evidence. Let me finish my point.
You said something that was not true. You say we're all liars. You're just simply saying we're all liars. And
I said it was a lie that the election was stolen.
Premise that you're right and we're wrong. Well, let's talk about the specifics of it. In Wisconsin, tens of thousands of absentee votes had only the name on them and no address. Historically, those were thrown out. This time they weren't. They made special accommodations because they said, oh, it's a pandemic and people forgot what their address was. So they changed the law after the fact. That is wrong. That's unconstitutional. And I plan on spending the next 2 years going around state to state and fixing these problems. And I won't be cowed by liberals in the media who say, there's no evidence here and you're a liar if you talk about election fraud. No, let's have an open debate. It's a free country.
There's no widespread evidence of election fraud that overturned the results. That was stated as well by the Department of Justice led by President Trump's Attorney General. In Wisconsin, there were counts and recounts.
Never studied that. Even that's not true. Even that's not true. Even
William Barr said that directly.
Barr said that, but there was. Yes, he said that. Yes, that was a pronouncement. There has been no examination, thorough examination of all the states to see what problems we had and see if they could fix them. Now, let me say, to be clear, I voted to certify the state electors because I think it would be wrong for Congress to overturn that. But at the same time, I'm not willing just to sit here and say, oh, everybody on the Republican side is a liar and there is no fraud. No, there were lots of problems, and there were secretaries of state who illegally changed the law, and that needs to be fixed. And I'm going to work hard to fix it, and I won't be cowed by people saying, oh, you're a liar. That's the problem with the media today, is they say all Republicans are liars and everything we say is a lie. There are two sides to every story. Interview somebody on the other side, but don't insert yourself into the story to say we're all liars because we think there's some fraud in the election. There
are not two sides of the story. This has been looked at in every single state. The election results were certified in every single state. There are two sides to every story. George, you're forgetting who you are. You're forgetting who you are as a journalist. If you think there's only one side, you're inserting yourself into the story to say, I'm a liar because I want to look at election fraud and I want to look at secretaries of state who illegally changed the voter laws without the permission of their state legislatures. That is incontrovertible. It happened. And you can't just sweep that under the rug and say, oh, nothing to see here, and everybody's a liar and you're a fool if you bring this up. You're inserting yourself into the story. A journalist would hear both sides, and there are two sides to this story. I'm standing by facts. There are not two sides to facts. I did not say that this was a perfect election. I said the results were certified. I said it was not stolen. It is a lie to say
people are liars. You're saying people are liars if they want to investigate what happened in the election.
That's not what I said.
The fact that tens of thousands of absentee ballots did not have addresses on them and normally were disqualified, but this time they were counted. Should we examine that? I don't know whether it affected the election or not, but I have an open mind. And if we actually examine this and we find out it didn't, that's fine, but it still should be fixed.
There can be more investigations. The investigations that have taken place have shown there is not enough fraud to change the results of this election. That has been certified by every state. It was stated by the Justice Department and the Attorney General.
And I accepted the state certifications, but it doesn't mean that I think that there wasn't fraud and that there weren't problems that have to be investigated, and it doesn't mean that the law wasn't broken. I believe in Pennsylvania they broke the law, and I believe if that ever would get a real hearing in the Supreme Court, it was denied for standing. It wasn't actually taken up. If it were taken up, I do believe that the Supreme Court would overrule and say that they did break the law illegally.
I asked you a very simple question. Was the election stolen or not?
I think there was a great deal of evidence of fraud and changing of the election laws illegally, and I think a thorough investigation is warranted.
That's right. It's a shame for the mass media guys today to be journalists. What I really don't know is why these mass media reports are all about Biden. Regrettably, these journalists, who are entrusted with the press, should be in a fair position to pursue only the facts. What happened to them? This is no different from the Communist Constitution of China. I'm really sad. Now, after the vote, Powell and Linwood admitted that the U.S. military seized the Dominion server managed by the CIA in Frankfurt. Later, I expected the Federal High Court to see the raw data as evidence of fraud in this election. However, until today, the Federal High Court has not held a trial, and the contents of the data on that server were unknown. But it seems that something has movement today, so let's tell Jay. Mr. J, please.
Yes, I understand. In the news I received today, the military extracted this raw data and produced the results, so I would like to introduce it. Looking at this, of the 50 states, Biden won only 12 states. And Trump held 38 states. And the number of electors won was 410 votes, which was a rare big victory in history. Expectations for Mr. Trump, who has won so many voters, are quite high.
Proceedings against fraud after this election, post-litigation hearings, movements of the state parliament, acceptance of the Electoral College's vote in the joint parliament, opposition at that time, riots in the Parliament building, impeachment against Mr. Trump, etc. Through various scenes, the people who betrayed Mr. Trump were exposed. In particular, I really came to my mind when I was the Vice President Pence, who I wanted to believe the most. At best, he wasn't a normal person to deceive Mr. Trump by wearing a mask for 4 years when he was warm. He will never lose any election in the future. No, he has to be defeated. Also, the Senate's General Affairs McCormick must never be elected in the next election. Not only did he betray Mr. Trump, he was a seller who sold the United States to CCP. Mr. J, it seems that there are already plans to drop many sellers in the next election, right?
Fox News reported that Mr. Trump was considering launching a new party by truly American lovers to replace the corrupt Republicans and Democrats. According to The Streets, the name of the new party was the Patriotic Party. However, if the new party is to be launched, there is a fear that the current Republican senator will oppose him and turn to the impeachment trial that begins in February. Therefore, Mr. Trump decided not to launch a new party, but to focus on aiming for more than half of the Republican House of Representatives and Senate. He has already raised $70 million in election funding, and he seems to be planning to use that money to beat him against a rebellious legislator. Let's take a look at the content of the article. Who is the rebellious member of the Diet against Mr. Trump? Wyoming's Liz Cheney, South Carolina's Tom Rice, Georgia's Governor Brian Kemp, and Alaska's Lisa Murkowski appear to be on the list.
I also read an article about Mr. Trump launching the Patriotic Party, but it may be quicker to make the current Republican Party a major than to be impeached. Besides, there are probably many Republicans who still support Mr. Trump. And there are rumors that Mr. Trump will be in the presidential election in 2024. How about that?
Yes. The news came from an interview with Newsmax yesterday by former Director of National Intelligence and personally close to Mr. Trump, Richard Glenell. In this interview, he said that the current Republican Party is still a good party, and the party's representative is still Mr. Trump. And he said he had heard many times from him that Mr. Trump had a lot of work to do and he was thinking of a 2024 presidential run to get it done.
That's right. I want him to come back to the president again, wipe out the corrupt mass media and ministers sold their souls, and walk the path to a true socialist nation. To that end, I would like to continue to support Mr. Trump for the next 4 years. Today is up to here. If you would like to continue to support Mr. Trump, please subscribe to our channel and cheer us on. Thank you very much for watching until the end today. Goodbye until the next opportunity.